All right. Welcome. Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope I'm coming through okay. It's just me though. It's just me. And I have already had a tumultuous beginning to this. Oh, it is working. I can hear myself on my phone. I've already had a tumultuous beginning to this episode. But you know what? I'm in a good mood. We got a little bit of football to talk. Nothing too crazy, but no Nick today. Nick is out. So we have we got a new operator because Eli's not here on Tuesdays. And we got no Nick, and it's just me in my Hello Kitty suit. So I purposely left the camera a little far over here just so we could feel the absence of his presence. But it's going to be fun. Okay, let me get chat pulled up here, and we can just get this thing rolling. So I'm not gonna. This should be a pretty quick episode because we don't have to deal with Nick's BS. Let's see here. Whoops. There we go. Okay, awesome. So now that we're good-ish, let's talk some football. But first, if you guys don't mind, since it's just me here, I think you owe me a like and a subscribe or something. We just hit 300 subscribers, which is actually ginormous for us, considering we're like barely halfway into the season, barely halfway into the football season. I'll take that. 300 is elite. We're trying to get to 500 by the end of the year, and I think that's more than doable. So let's get it. Let's go ahead and run into these slides, Bailey, and we'll also shout out Bailey. He's behind the scenes right now. But if you don't mind going to the little Canva on the left screen, and then we should be good. Yep. And then, yeah, perfect. One more. Yeah. All right. Can they see this right? Okay. Beautiful. So this week, last week we didn't have anybody on bye. This week we do have somebody on bye. And unfortunately, it's for kind of elite fantasy teams that are on bye right now. 49ers, Lions, Broncos, and Jaguars. So if you are rocking any 49ers players, sorry. Any Lions players, sorry. Laporta, sorry. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameer Gibbs and everybody else. Sorry, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, ETN. I mean, there are so many star players on bye right now. It does kind of hurt. But it is what it is. Let's go to the next slide real quick, and we'll just jump into these waiver targets. And, okay, perfect. So we'll just jump into the waiver targets. There's nothing too much, but, there's really not too much to talk about. There's nothing blockbuster or star-studded in this one. And actually some names that I didn't really think were going to be on here, like Quentin Johnston. Oh, there's Nick in the chat. He wants to show up in the chat. Love that. Dickhead. he says these guys are awful. Yeah. It's just Guy, by the way. This guy is awful. All right, so starting out, tight end action, Jake Ferguson. I've been preaching this dude all year, so I'm going to take my little victory lap on that one. Jake Ferguson has been looking decent. He was like leading red zone targets for all players for a little while. I don't know if that's true anymore, but he's still getting looks, and he's still the clear number one tight end for the Cowboys, who are a high-powered offense. I'm running that. If you can get Jake Ferguson and have him on your bench as a backup tight end, which most of you are probably going to be doing, I hope you're not having to use him as your only tight end. But if you need somebody, like, screw it. Jake Ferguson's been balling. He's had a decent amount of catches every single game. He's fairly consistent. If he can get a touchdown, you got a very solid tight end, and that's super easy. Next up, a little bit more of a star-studded one. Hang on. Is Kyler Murray. So he's coming back, and actually literally 2 hours ago, I think, maybe less than that, the Cardinals traded Joshua Dobbs, their previously starting quarterback for the entire rest of the year, to the Vikings. Now that Kirk Cousins is out with an ACL tear, that sucks. But now they have Josh Dobbs up there, which is better than nothing. So that kind of bodes well for Kyler Murray, which is why I have him on here. So if Kyler Murray is coming back, I doubt he plays this week. But if he's back, next week or the week after, like, he could be elite. I mean, we've all seen him with his rushing upside. It's awesome. He's not like a fantastic passer by any means, but rushing upside's insane. And this is a guy that can go out and get you 35 points. So if you are remotely QB needy, I think this is going to be your week to pick him up, because next week, if he doesn't play this week, next week is going to be some hot competition for him. Moving on to Quentin Johnston. Briefly talked about him because he had a great-ish game last weekend. I mean, he was kind of like a non-factor for a while, and then showed up a little bit in the Chargers-Bears game, which, I mean, isn't really saying much because it's the Bears, but like he's kind of doing what we thought he was going to be doing for the majority of the year and just wasn't. I mean, he was just kind of sucking. And now he looked decent. So this could just be a trap, and we're going to throw Quentin Johnston on our benches, and he's never going to do anything again. But if he is, and he can fill in Mike Williams' shoes, like, screw it. Throw him on there. He's a very ridiculously athletic guy. I think one of his metric comparisons was like a slower DK Metcalf, which is like, you want that comparison all day. I'll take that all day. And if he can show half of what DK Metcalf is, like, we're chilling. We're definitely chilling for free, essentially. You can get him very cheap right now. So throw him on, throw a little waiver bid on there. I wouldn't do too much, especially in, you know, a 12-man league. If you're in a 16er, first of all, I'm sorry, but I would imagine he's a decent pickup in a 16-team league. Next decent pickup, is Devin Singletary. And this one really hurts me because I was so high on Dameon Pierce to start the year. Like, so high on him. And I was like, all right, you know, he started the year a little slow. I was preaching he just needs his O-line to come back. He just needs a little help. And then by the time his O-line came back, Devin Singletary is getting more touches now. So as much as it pains me to say, I do think we are going to be looking at Devin Singletary, and maybe he's an option moving forward. I really don't like anybody rushing on that Texans team right now. They just seem to be leaning on C.J. Stroud, peep the bottom right corner, but they seem to be leaning on C.J. Stroud a lot more than I was expecting, than I think anyone was expecting. And if he can take the majority of the workload, he's been slightly better than Dameon Pierce has been. So, you know, give it a shot. Maybe he turns up something decent, maybe not. I don't know. And then another running back option, Amari DeMarcado, who has been a, you know, mildly talked about player for the Cardinals once James Conner went down. He looks decent when he gets the ball. I'm not super thrilled about him, but their running back has been extremely volatile this year. And I know that a lot of people are hurting for running back, especially this week with McCaffrey on bye, Gibbs, Montgomery not going to be here. They're on bye too. ETN's on bye. I mean, Javonte Williams is on bye. Like, there's so many people on bye and so many injured running backs. Like, a guy who's getting 10 touches is valuable right now, and you want him on your bench. And I know a lot of people probably dropped Amari DeMarcado last week just because he wasn't doing anything. And now it seems like he's going to be getting slightly more work, and you need that. So pick him up. Maybe the Cardinals offense picks it up a little bit with Kyler Murray coming back and he gets some red zone opportunities. That'd be awesome. But, you know, he's worth a shot. Another guy worth a shot is Romeo Doubs. So this one, as a Packers fan, is interesting to me because Romeo Doubs is like the most hot and cold guy right now for us. I think the Packers are selling, by the way. We just got rid of Rasul Douglas, our second corner. So that is a pretty decent sign that we're selling. So Romeo Doubs, I don't think he's going to see a ton of red zone work because we suck. And I don't think he's going to see any 150-yard games because we suck. But Romeo Doubs, like, he's good. And, like, he's good at getting open. He has decent hands. So if the Packers can get anything moving on offense, he's semi-valuable. Definitely a flex option, especially in deeper team leagues. Nick is asking, do I think Devontae is going to get traded? I would be thrilled if he was traded. I'd love it. I don't own any Devontae anywhere, but I am a huge Devontae fan because he was elite in Green Bay. However, I don't think he gets traded. I think this is a pride move by the Raiders, so they're not going to be moving Josh Jacobs. They're not going to be moving Devontae Adams, and I don't think they're going to be in the market for a quarterback because of pride. And you see this all too often, especially with teams like the Raiders, like the Packers, like the Falcons. They just don't really move their star players because of their pride behind it. So I can't see Devontae getting moved anytime soon. It would be amazing, but I don't think so. Another slightly decent news. Have the Chiefs been... I don't really... Honestly, we'll get back to that. Another slightly interesting news is Leonard Fournette. So he just signed with the Bills, which some of you might be thinking, well, the Bills don't really need another running back, so what are they doing? They have James Cook. They weren't really using James Cook to his abilities. They were kind of using him as a, like, bruiser, like up the gut kind of guy, when he's definitely not that kind of guy. He's a much more in space. He needed a little bit of room to breathe. And they just weren't using him for that. And now they go and pick up Leonard Fournette, which was the kind of guy to be a bruiser back, kind of the up the middle, kind of the halfback dive guy. So if they really want to lean into that style of offense, then Leonard Fournette could be looking at a decent amount of work. Obviously, probably not this week, but next week, the week after, he could slowly get worked in and maybe be somebody decent. I'm thinking of a Ezekiel Elliott kind of guy. So obviously not as talented as Zeke is, but or maybe a Damian Harris is another good thing, because they did lose Damian Harris earlier this year. So that's a decent comparison. Finally, CJ Stroud. I love this guy. We've been pretty high on Stroud. He's just been really great as a rookie so far, and it's been really fun to see. He's been elevating Nico Collins, elevating Tank Dell, and the passing offense has looked really, really nice. And right now, a lot of quarterbacks are on bye. Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy's on bye, Jared Goff's on bye, Russell Wilson's on bye. Not a lot of elite quarterbacks, but CJ Stroud is going to get picked up this week, probably. And they have a decent matchup this weekend, so I could see CJ Stroud like having a good game for you, filling in. I've had him on my bench as a backup quarterback for the longest time in one of my main leagues, and I plan on keeping him there because I love him, and he's extremely talented and can easily put up 30 points and 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I would take that every day of the week, and that's something that he can give you all the time. I know they had a tough game against the Panthers last week, but I'm giving him shots. I don't care. Like, I'm running him back confidently. And if you can grab him off waivers right now, that's a steal. Okay, take me to the trade targets if you don't mind. Beautiful. This is what everyone wants to see. Speaking of trading Devontae, I cannot see a world where Devontae Adams does not get some kind of usage. I mean, I don't know what is going on in Las Vegas. Jimmy G, I've never seen a worse quarterback play than whatever happened yesterday. If they make some kind of change at quarterback, Devontae Adams obviously goes back to his, great self. But right now, it's bad. However, that's why he's on the buy low, because he has had about 5 weeks back to back of pretty poor performance, especially for Devontae Adams standards. I can't see them continuing that. He's way too talented for that to continue. I think it's a matter of time before somebody on the Raiders wakes up, whether it's Jimmy G or a coaching staff or somebody wakes up and is like, uh-oh, we need to start getting this guy 10 targets again, or we're going to lose all of our games. You have to imagine that happens. So Devontae Adams, I think you can get him for, very cheap right now. He's been non-existent. So 1 catch for 11 yards last night. Give me a break. Buy this guy really low. Even if he doesn't return to his, Hall of Fame status and caliber of play, which we know he's capable of, if he returns to half of that, you've got a decent flex receiver right there. So I'm buying him low. I don't really know who you could trade for him. I'm thinking somebody maybe like Nico Collins, maybe I don't know, a Calvin Ridley, maybe somebody of that value. And you can get him for cheap, and then he could go crazy. Another guy who always has the capabilities of going crazy is DeAndre Swift. He was really elite to start the year, started off with a 0 the first game, or maybe a 1 the first game, and then immediately came back and was like, oh, let me just put up 150 yards in a couple of games. That'll just happen. And they've been using him decently ever since. I think the Eagles begin to lean a little bit more on him because they know how talented he is. And right now he's, not been a top 10 running back, which he's capable of, but I think he will be. I think they're going to get in situations where they're going to need to throw a lot of passes his way, where he's going to be getting a lot of carries. They have a tough schedule, but I think that's actually not the worst thing for DeAndre Swift because he's such an option in the passing game. I'm going to pick him up low if I can. Another guy I'm picking up low if I can, I'm super high on Keenan Allen this year. The Chargers, elite offense, 90% of the time. There's a 10% of the time when the Chargers are the worst offense you've ever seen on the field. But that other 90%, it's oh yeah, these guys are elite fantasy options. I mean, we saw that for the majority of the Bears game. A little bit of a scare towards the end, but I'd take it. I'm taking 90% of the Chargers offense all day. And Keenan Allen, who we all know from, I think it was week 4 or 5 maybe, or maybe it was 3. He put up like 250 yards on like 15 catches, which is just like mind-blowing numbers. And they didn't really continue that or really anything close to that after. He had some decent showings, but I think that he continues to see the volume, which he is, proven to get. I'm talking 9, 10 targets a game, which is phenomenal numbers. He's a ridiculously talented wide receiver. I think the Chargers are in a bit of a, not necessarily a rut, but a downturn on their coaching and their play calling and their they looked a little clunky for a little bit. However, I definitely feel like they're getting back to their roots and they're starting to look good again. And that means Keenan Allen is on the table for another big old game, and they have a decent schedule coming up. I'm loving it. I'm thinking Keenan Allen could go out there and get you some really, 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 he could win you your week big time. I don't know if you're going to trade anybody of similar ability. I would say if you can move DJ Moore or somebody for him, go off the hype of DJ Moore before something really bad happens to him and try and get a Keenan Allen with it. Oh, that would be incredible. Or package somebody like a Chris Olave and somebody else for a Keenan Allen. I love that. Another guy who I also love but has been a little bit disappointing, especially 2 weeks ago, Bijan Robinson. I mean, the name of the year for rookie running backs, maybe not now with Jahmyr Gibbs balling out, but 2 weeks ago he has an illness and it's okay, they're just not using him. And then Arthur Smith comes out and he's like, oh, we're going to use him however we want to use him. And you're going to have to deal with it. We don't care about your fantasy teams. And I'm like, bro, shut up, man. I'm so tired of that dude. Give me Bijan that we have seen and that we know is there and he's ridiculously talented. We know it's there. We've seen it. They just need to wake up and realize if we give Bijan Robinson 20 touches, he's going to go out there and get us 150 yards and a touchdown. It's all possible. And probably the team that drafted Bijan Robinson is probably not very good right now because that's their first round pick and he's, hasn't really been carrying like they need him to. So I would imagine they're looking for somebody that can get them wins. And I think you can maybe package an offer for this dude, and a pretty low offer at that. So see what you can get for Bijan. I think he's super talented. Really, that's the theme of the buy low right now is all these ridiculously talented guys who have been kind of underperforming for the last 5 weeks and have a either positive-looking schedule coming up or we think there has to be a change or something. I'm going with those guys. On the other side of things, the sell high categories. Jahmyr Gibbs, we watched him play last night, and he looked like one of the best running backs of the year. I mean, he looked incredible. He was getting passing down work. He was getting long runs. He had a 27-yard touchdown. I love that. He looked incredible. That being said, we're talking about the Lions here. They hate him. Don't you forget. They hate Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know why. All year before David Montgomery got hurt, they were giving him 3 touches a game, a target a game. And everybody was like, what is going on? I can't see that. I can't see Jahmyr Gibbs' production continuing. I think if you give him maybe this next game, whenever David Montgomery gets back, let's just say that. When David Montgomery comes back, I can't see him going and continuing what he's doing right now. I think the Lions love David Montgomery too much, and they go and they give him his 20 touches. And David Montgomery steals the touchdowns because he gets the goal line work. And Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe not as bad as he was to start the year, but, I mean, a significant decrease. And you could trade him right now for somebody big. I mean, especially if somebody doesn't really know the Lions very well. I mean, you could trade Jahmyr Gibbs, who has put up 22 points and then 35 points back-to-back. Those are elite numbers. You could trade him for somebody very, very, very good, especially on maybe a needy team or somebody who's looking for those big plays. Another guy, this is an interesting one because I like DeAndre Hopkins and I actually like the Titans a little bit. However, what happened with Will Levis on this weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming at all. I mean, we're talking about this guy's first game and he throws for 4 touchdowns. What? This guy's never played a snap in his life and he throws for 4 touchdowns. And DeAndre Hopkins was on the receiving end of 3 of them. So it's whoa. Now hold on. DeAndre Hopkins puts up 45 PPR points in a week, And now everybody's like, okay, hold on, this guy might be elite. However, let me temper your expectations. I can't see that continuing. It's not very often any quarterback throws 4 touchdowns a week. So I cannot imagine Will Levis does that again. Maybe he'll see it once or twice more this year if he's really that guy. And if you look at DeAndre Hopkins' stat line, he had 4 catches. And 3 of them were touchdowns. And 3 of them were deep touchdowns. Brothers, that is not sustainable. That kind of production is not sustainable whatsoever. Let me double check that stat real quick because I'm actually pretty interested in the target share versus the touchdowns because it was very, very interesting to see. Okay. DeAndre Hopkins, 4 for 128 and 3. 4 catches, and 3 of them were touchdowns. That is not... He hadn't caught a touchdown outside of this week. So, that's not going to continue. Obviously, 3 touchdowns is not going to continue. Maybe he gets those deep ball looks that he's very capable of, and, we know that he can do. But, 6 targets, nothing blowing your mind. But 4 catches and 3 of them are touchdowns? Sell this dude. If a guy sees that and he's like, okay, he just put up 45 points. I want that. I don't want it. Not me personally. Sell him and get somebody more consistent or get somebody on a better offense. Try that. Another guy who needs to be more consistent and on a better offense. I hate this dude. If this guy left the league forever, I would be on cloud 9. I hate him. Taysom Hill, if you're listening to this, I hate you. Come on the show. Let's talk. This dude, 2 rushing touchdowns last week. Give me a break, man. I mean, come on. The fantasy vulture of all time was, and peak performance this week. 2 rushing touchdowns. He's a tight end. I'm tired of doing this Taysom Hill. How is he going to get listed as a tight end if he's going to play quarterback? Or if he's going to be listed as a tight end and he's going to be doing all of the rushing? What are we doing? List him as a quarterback. Taysom Hill, go away, man. Trade him to some team who needs a tight end and be rid of him because there's no way that he rushes for multiple touchdowns or passes for multiple touchdowns or receives multiple touchdowns. He's been on a bit of a hot streak right now, but the Saints look awful. They look real bad. I mean, his last couple of games, 1 catch for 14 yards, and the rushing is 9 for 63 and 2 touchdowns. That was his most rushes by far. Last week, 5 rushes for 18 yards and a touchdown. So he's getting these tiny little goal line opportunities. There is no way that continues in a sustainable form. If he wants to go out there and get a touchdown, okay, that's fine. But that's not the kind of tight end usage that we're looking for right now. And he's hurting the rest of the offense. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, Kamara not getting goal line touches. Kamara obviously has been fine in his own right, but no goal line touches is what? He still had, a lot of work, but 2 of them were vultured by Taysom Hill. Give me a break. I hate this guy. Let's move on from him. Saquon Barkley. This is going to be one that I've been excited to talk about. And that's because he hasn't really been amazing, but he had a good week numbers-wise this last week. So he had, let me pull this up. Saquon Barkley had 128 yards, no touchdowns. So he had 20 PPR points. The week before that, 77 yards, no touchdowns, 18 PPR points. The week before that, 93, no touchdowns, 13 PPR points. The reason he's not getting these touchdowns is because the Giants suck. They're bad, and they're going to continue to be bad. So he's not getting red zone opportunities. He also doesn't have a very easy schedule coming up. He plays the Raiders this week. Amazing. Now, here's the reason that I'm moving on from him. Not only because the red zone work is not really there, they're not getting in the red zone. This week, he put up 128 yards, which sounds like a lot. I want you to guess right now in your head. Just guess how many carries you think he had. You're like, okay, 128. That's, decent. He probably got 20 carries. 20 for 128 yards. That's about right for him. What if I told you he had 36 carries? 36. That's 16 more carries than somebody like Derrick Henry's getting. 36 carries for 128 yards? That ain't that efficient. That is not that great. and they were in a long game. So I can't see a world, and mind you, this is also a game where they are not playing from behind that often. They were leading for the majority of this game, so they're going to be pounding the rock more. But 36 carries on 128 yards, I mean, I would expect like 200 with 36 carries. Now, I know that's a little outrageous, but like 36 carries is outrageous. Moving forward, they're going to be playing people like Dallas, people like New England, people like New Orleans and Philadelphia. Those are a couple of their matchups coming who are way better run defenses than what he's seen so far. And they're going to be playing from behind for the majority of these games, which means way less running work for Saquon Barkley. Right now, if you can pitch him to somebody who needs a running back and you're like, look, dude, he just got 36 carries. Wow. 20 points. Whoa, this is pretty good. I'd move on from that. I'm not a big supporter of the Giants right now. I don't know if it shows, but they were able to muster nothing yesterday against a Jets offense who was able to muster nothing. And if they're playing from behind, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more, which means Saquon Barkley getting a lot less work. I'm going to move on from him, and I think that means we are pretty close to done with this show. I know it's been short. That's because Nick hasn't been here to bother me and be a little worm in my ear the whole show. Happy Halloween, everybody. Do we have go to the next slide for me real quick. Beautiful. There we go. This is our closing slide for today. And if you want to like full screen me, we can just roll with that too while I do my little closer. Like I was saying at the beginning of the show, guys, we're trying to hit the 500 subs before the end of the year, before playoffs for the most part. That would be amazing if we can do that. And right now it starts in these little episodes where it's just me doing it. So please shoot us a subscription, give us a like. That really boosts us in the algorithms right now. And also, if you're in the chat or anything, like pop in there, give us your trade questions. We'll be back on Thursday with a lot more information, a lot more data for you. And we answer a lot of trade questions, a lot of trades, a lot of starts and sits questions, all of those. Bring those to the board on Thursday when we're here, and I promise you we can help you out. We've helped out a lot of players so far this year. So not to brag, but we've been pretty decent. Our track record's been pretty decent this year. I like it. So thanks for watching. I'm sorry it's just me. Happy Halloween. Go out tonight. Dress up, do a little trick-or-treating, take your kids out. If you have kids, have a good time. If you don't have kids, go out yourself, get you some candy. Have a great evening. Let's roll the end screen for us real quick, which is that hold screen, I think, and then we should be good.